Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast. Today, I am so happy to welcome Amy. Amy is a national board certified health and wellness coach, as well as a behavior change expert. So, welcome, Amy. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, no. So I know prior to our podcast and everything, we spoke about you know, um, just our own journeys. And I know you working as a coach and working with people with health and wellness and behavior change. I guess what are some things that, you work with your clients to really help them, you know, get to that wellness point in life and that, very place of like what I like to call like just inner peace and really enjoying their lives.
Yeah, so because I have the title of health and wellness coach, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you can help me make a workout plan or you can help me like eat better." And while those are things that are in my toolbox, what I've learned throughout my journey is that those things, like I could hand you a fully built out meal plan or a fully built out workout plan, but if you haven't done that inner work, shifted your mindset, understood why you're doing the things that you're doing, nothing else is going to land. So
Mm,
when I work with my clients, I really start out with what's your why? What's your
yeah.
purpose, your motivation? And really ensuring that it's something that is anchored to the core of their soul. Because
Mm,
I've had people, start out with, oh, I just like the attention I get when I'm at a smaller size, or, like something that's a little more surface level. And unfortunately, like things just they're just not able to really hook habits into that. And so I work with people to understand, what's that ultimate kind of what does that make possible? If you want to achieve this, what does that make possible? Because whatever that thing is that it makes possible, that is your true why. And so I really help them dig into that because once we understand what that really deeply rooted thing is that they're working towards, we can anchor just about any habit into that. And that really supports overall health and wellness because statistics more and more are saying that chronic disease and all the things that we're seeing that are just really overloading our healthcare system really come back to habits and behaviors and like mindset and all of that underlying stuff that nobody really wants to deal with.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point that especially you being in the health and wellness industry is that and what this is even working with my clients, I unfortunately feel like we are in a society that like we want a pill, we want a magic fix. Like, I mean, I'm all about modern medicine. Of course, like, you know what I mean? If you are sick or if you have a very bad chronic disease or if you know what I mean, if something's going on seriously, like you need antibiotics. I'm not saying don't get antibiotics, but I think that's kind of conditioning us in a way when it comes to your like as you mentioned your soul work, your general wellness to like just want a quick fix, and in my experience and working with my clients, I found it is not all that quick.
Yeah, it is not a quick, it is not an easy, it is not a fun and joyful process. It's, really opening up and looking at the scars and looking at the wounds. And yeah, it's painful, but unless we take the time to stop and look at those painful, scars and warts, and to do so from a place of love and self-acceptance, unless we do that, nothing else is ever going to land and nothing's going to stick.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a really good point about like awareness and that and I would love your thoughts on this because one of the exercises and I'll share a little bit of tidbit of what I do with my clients, right? One of their exercises when I first start working with them is to I ask them, what are three adjectives that you would use to describe yourself? And they
Mm,
give it to me. And then I go, all right, cool. And I say, go ask, like, how I don't give them a number, but I said, ask your like closest friends, like your inner circle, what the three adjectives that they would use to describe you. And then they come back to me. And if they're different, I say, all right, so by the time we're all done with this, those all three of those words for both you and your inner circle should be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Johari, it's actually there's an exercise called it's a Johari window where you pick a bunch of different adjectives that you use to describe yourself and then same thing and what other people use.
Mhm.
And then there's like, okay, these are the things that are known and believed by, both you and other people, like inner and outer self-awareness. And then
Yeah.
oh, these people, recognize this, but you don't. And then it's like you recognize this, but other people don't. And it's always fascinating. And in another similar exercise that I do is ask yourself, how do you want to come across when you're really stressed out? And what would your best friend say about you as far as how you come across when you're stressed out? Like that's another like very similar exercise because they say you never know the flavor of the tea until it's in hot water, right?
Oh, I've actually have never heard that, and I like that a lot. Yeah, because and let's be honest, like a lot of us have been in hot water, and I like to say like if you are it's really hard because we are only human, you know what I mean? And I think I was having a conversation with another podcast guest last week about just like when you are in a state of dysregulation or a state of anxiety or fear, like unfortunately our bodies are and our brains are not built to like to be as logical as, maybe we are in not hot water, right? Like I know that the emotional side of my brain works faster than my logical side. So like that's why people if something is making them angry, like they blow up or they lash out, it's because like your emotional side of your brain is moving like it's just the way we're built in our biology.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, when I work with my clients that I kind of work with them on the compassion part of that
Mm,
is like, okay, let's have some compassion for yourself in this moment because, nobody's perfect. Like we're all dealing with a lot of stuff. But on the other hand of things, when you're on the receiving end of that, just pausing
mm,
and being like, what's
mm.
going on with that person? Because we so easily take those like blow ups and tantrums or whatever words you want to call it. We take it personally. It's like, it's got nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with whatever's going on with them, their lived experience, etc.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I have a tattoo on my arm and that reminds me of that and that's the reason why I got it tattooed. It's that you can't see it. I'm wearing sleeves. I'm sorry. So nobody can see it. But it is your perception of me is a reflection of you and my reaction to you is an awareness of me.
Yeah.
So if I react in a certain way because somebody's reacting, that's on me. And then how you perceive me and think about me, that's on you.
Yeah.
But I have to also too, I think we talk about awareness a lot. I want to let people know, and I'm sure you're working with your clients too, like I feel and would love your thoughts on this. Like awareness is like a learned behavior. Like this is not something we were taught in school.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I will say, it's something that is become, social emotional learning. I'm very fortunate that I get to go every quarter to the local middle school and talk to the eighth graders in health class about stress management. So it's definitely something that they are increasing awareness of it. But yeah, self-awareness it starts with the mindfulness piece, being
Mhm.
able to slow down and like be in that moment without appraising the moment one way or another so that we can then kind of start to self-reflect and become aware. It's like I always make the joke that like, oh, every time I talk to my mother-in-law, I go pound a pint of ice cream. Maybe there's a connection here. Like, we're so inundated with like our phones and email and like, the fast pace of society that it's almost impossible to like slow down and just really be in the moment.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I think you make a great point that we also spoke about and would love to bring up on this episode of like being curious about ourselves, right? Like, like as you said, like when you did that, like, and you like want a pound of ice to be like, what? Like, let's look into that. Like, why do I, use that coping mechanism when I talk to that person? And I'm a big too, like your body will tell you, your emotions will tell you. Like when you're frustrated, like all emotions are not bad. Like I think like that's another thing that like people have. Like it's like, oh, it's like when people are like, oh, like don't let it impact you. I'm like, well, like I'm human. Like I'm gonna have a reaction, and that's why I love that you mentioned having like that compassion for not only yourself, but like for other people too. Like we're all only human.
Right.
However, it's when this is where I would love also, and I just said, just in life experience, I think when it becomes like a pattern of perhaps like maybe some you're having a negative impact or you're feeling a negative emotion or a bad emotion or just an unpleasant emotion towards somebody or you're picking when it becomes a pattern and there's no like change in behavior, that's when you're like, okay, like we got to reevaluate the situation here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the whole, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result of insanity, right?
Yep,
Um,
yep.
but yeah, like being curious and really just paying attention to ourselves and understanding that emotions, feelings, all of that, it's all just data. It's just information. And like you
Mhm.
said, it's not good or bad. It just is. But because we are so kind of like ingrained to believe that this emotion is bad or this emotion is good, we will react accordingly. And, that just comes back to the mindfulness piece. Like, okay, let me just sit with this. I love to use the analogy of quicksand. I don't know about you,
Mm.
but like when I was growing up, they're always like, if you get stuck in quicksand, and like I've never run into quicksand, but
Neither have I. So
but they
thankfully,
all
neither one of us have.
right. But I know exactly what to do or what not to do, and I liken it to that. Like when you're dealing with difficult and painful emotions, it's like quicksand. Like you can't fight it, or you're gonna sink deeper. Whereas
Mm.
if you just sit with it and relax and just go with it, like you'll
Yeah.
be okay. Eventually it'll pass, and sometimes it'll pass even faster if you're just like, "Oh, I'm noticing this." And yeah, like I said, one of my favorite words is curious, and just getting curious like, "Oh, like I'm noticing that I'm feeling, this. What time of day is it? Where am I? Who am
Hmm.
I around? Like what was I just doing? Did I just have a memory that just popped up?" And, just starting to like really become that detective. And
Yeah.
and to your point, talking about the patterns, like if it becomes like a repeating thing, if there's a particular situation or feeling or scenario that continues to trigger you, that is a like huge flag that you need to go back and like reframe
Mm-hmm.
wherever it
Hmm.
originates from.
Yep. And I will tell you, I am going through that personally right now. Like, I'll share with the audience, like, before I was late to our podcast recording call because I was like deep in the weeds about something going on in my HOA right now. And I'm like, oh, Danielle, like, you have to, like, I mean, of course, like, I'm lucky enough I can have the fluid life where like I can do that. But I wouldn't say it's a full trigger, but it's like I always say, it's like when something is activated inside of you, like I do look inward and I say, all right, like what's that's making you so, feel that way? And normally like I try to live a pretty, I'm not saying the morality police. I am definitely not. I have made many mistakes in my life and still do make mistakes. I am not perfect, but when things like morally don't go right or like, like there's like some shadiness, like I get
Injustice.
yeah, like I get really I get activated by it because I'm like, Like I one of my core values is that like just like treat other people the way you want to be treated. Like it's so simple, but it just seems to be so hard sometimes. So I get very frustrated when like I see that happening around me, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely very much triggered by the injustice thing as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also too like you know, a nature like of our society, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like we have laws, we have ethics for a reason, and they should be, I mean, you would hope they're upheld, but as we're learning, and even as I'm learning as I get older, like human nature, like we are like imperfectly perfect.
Yeah. And our brain loves the negative stuff, right? It
It
like
does.
ignores all the positive stuff. And it is so easy when you hit one of those triggers and like you just want to like, lay back and dive deep into all of the frustration and the anger or like whatever that feeling is. And like
Hmm.
it takes a lot of strength to just stop and be like, whoa, like everything's okay, I'm okay, like everything's gonna
Hmm.
work out. It's sometimes hard, the allure of just, diving head first into all of that emotion is it's powerful.
It is. And I love that you said too, like I say to people all the time, and this is I might like put it on a t-shirt. I'm taking credit for this quote. I love quotes. I quote like a lot of people. I find them inspiring, but all emotions demand to be felt. So I love that you said before, like, sit with your feelings. Like, that is my therapist side of myself coming out. Also, my coaching side. I think people also, too, like, you know, a lot of my clients, you know, sometimes, and they're in the corporate world. And in the corporate world, you're taught and conditioned, like, no, even my dad, he was a boomer. He's a company guy. He's gonna retire with the company. He's actually 65. He could retire, but he's not because he likes his job. But I remember when I used to work in corporate America, he would tell me, Danielle, like put your stuff, your personal stuff, your emotions to the side. Like the office isn't the place for them. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like I'm also like human. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a human being, and I feel like the clients that I work with as well, like it's a struggle in that environment because it isn't a, you know, therapeutics. Sometimes it's not safe. I'm not saying all of them, but sometimes it's not safe to you don't feel comfortable expressing your emotions because that's what the environment kind of, you know, has produced.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I joke about it a lot. I mean, I was born in the 70s, so raised in the 80s and 90s, and it's like, you know, there is no compassion or, just rest. It's like pull up your bootstraps, power through. And I think we really see that in corporate world,
Mhm.
definitely. And but I also think that we're seeing culture shifts in companies that are also recognizing, oh, we are all human. We are, all experiencing being human, and it's, there is room for that. And so I think it's great that we're seeing corporate wellness programs and like
Yeah.
HR will start to really be like, like mental health days. I know some people joke about that, but
No, no.
it's it's a very real thing. There are just some days where it's like, I just can't people today. I can't adult,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. I am 100% with you, and we all need them, and that's something that like I actually had to tell myself like over the weekend, because like I just like I'm just go. I will say like I tell my clients to slow down all the time, and I'm like maybe you should take a little bit of your own advice, and like I needed just a day to just like do nothing and like dissociate, like, and I would love your thoughts on this too, is like in my mind, right? I'm like, oh, rest needs to be earned. Like I needed to do like I had a busy week, so like I earned this rest today. And it's like, no, like rest is something your body needs, it's something your mind needs. Like you do not have to do anything to earn your rest.
Yeah, I again, very much raised with the philosophy of you don't rest until the house is clean, all the work is
Mhm.
done, all the, starving children in Africa have been fed. Like,
Yep.
and there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes
Yeah.
along with just taking time out. And, I learned the hard way that, my body will unfortunately take over and tell me that it is time to rest, and so, and I think that's been a really big lesson for me this year is that if I don't rest, my body will make me rest. And so
Mhm.
I love to offer that as like comfort to my clients this year because, you know, it's literally part of our nervous system. We talk
Yeah.
about flight all the time, but we forget about the freeze part, that you're literally in that frozen, immobilized collapse. You use the word dissociated, like that is very much a stress response. So,
Mhm.
it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you lack motivation. You really just need to chill.
Yeah, no, and and if I think you mentioned two emotions that so I talked to my therapist about this and like no emotions are bad, right? Or like they're maybe like negative. That's a better term. Like maybe like a negative feeling or an uncomfortable feeling. But I will say, and I'll say it proudly, guilt and shame are really bad emotions. And if they they suck. Let's just be honest. Like how they feel and it's I feel like it's especially when it comes to like taking care of yourself and compassion, there's still a lot of work to do because it feels sometimes maybe like indulgent or you know what I mean? And there's still a lot of work that we can do as coaches or as people to like make it less of a guilty, like, they say like guilty pleasures. It's like, no, like if that's what your body needs, like that's what your body needs, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree that shame is something that, we should all work on. Guilt is different. There
Oh,
are
yes, yes.
definitely like productive versions of guilt. Like, if you miss an appointment with someone because you didn't put it in your calendar, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna be better, when it results in making a change that will be better moving forward. Like guilt because, again, the starving children in Africa, like that's not
Yeah,
guilt.
yes, that's not, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think too, I think a big thing that I recognized in my own work and also just like I'm not an expert on shame and guilt, like not taking that crown from Brene Brown. She is
No,
the
no, no.
expert. Not taking she love her. But I believe from my perspective and just my own healing. Like guilt is more like I feel bad, where like shame is like I am bad. And it's
Yep.
like there's two very different distinctions there. But I
Yeah.
do want to move on to because we were talking about prior to like self-awareness and everything. And I do want to ask you because we the power of because you say like shifting your methodology or your coaching style of shifting people from like the why to the what. I don't know if you could just explain that a little bit because I thought that was really powerful when you told me about that.
The why to the what. Help me out here. I don't
Oh
remember.
yeah, no, oh sorry. Oh yeah, when we I don't know, I think you were just describing like like when we first had met that like instead of trying to figuring out why you do something, like focus on the what and focus
Oh,
on the
gotcha, gotcha.
behavior. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. All good. No, it happens to me, trust me, it happens to me all the time. I literally my brain.
Yes, 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 yes. So what we're talking about here is like applying the right kind of questions in the right places. So, I talked about in the beginning having that why, that purpose and the motivation. Why causes our brain to like go into analysis and get emotional. It goes into our limbic portion of our brain. So when we're talking about our overall purpose, like, yeah, we want it to be emotional, but when it comes down to like, all right, what are the next steps? We want to shift into like the what, the how, the when, because that shifts our brain into a much more strategic form of thinking. So instead of like how we use this is instead of saying, oh, like, why do I keep doing this? Or why can't I get myself to do that? We instead ask, like, what was going on that prevented me from X? Or, how can I approach this differently? Or, just asking that different question. Because otherwise, if we ask the why question when we're reflecting, it's going to go down that nasty path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the what too, to your point, like if you focus on the what, that is definitely more present because, like, and it's also like, in my opinion, more like action oriented. All right. So, like, what can I do about this? Like, the why will always be there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can go, and honestly, I'm reading a book right now by Abigail Schreier, and it's called um it's bad therapy, why the kids like can't like grow up. Excuse me, I forget the subtitle, but it's called Bad Therapy.
Okay.
And basically, her stance is that actually mental health professionals are kind of in responsible for this mental health crisis we're in, because if we have more resources than ever, people are more medicated than ever, then like why is the crisis getting worse? And it's because, to what you were kind of saying, like people are focusing on the why too much. And I'm not saying all therapists do this. Like I'm not generalizing or saying that. But I mean, do I agree? Like therapy has helped me tremendously. So I will always be an advocate for therapy, but I can understand where she's coming from, because if you stay in the why too much, you don't go anywhere.
Yeah. I think I mean this is a huge topic here. And I really believe, kind of going back to what we were saying about, the just tough it out in the 70s,
Yeah.
90s. I think that piece of it has, it really created um a bad situation for people going into COVID. We were
Mm.
already struggling like mental health, and we were just already kind of limping along as it was. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, like a really underutilized set of skills and tools and resources, people didn't have what they needed to really kind of make it through that isolation, or, they're stuck with people that they were already having struggles with. And, there's still that mental health stigma. So COVID really just took an already hobbling civilization and just, swept the feet out from underneath us. And now, like, yes, we're recognizing social emotional learning, how it's important, but it's like, there's still that stigma. And, then you throw in social media and how comparison is just everywhere. It's like this pressure cooker. So I know, like I said, it's a huge topic, but I also agree that, there some of the mental health stuff that's available is, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'd be interested to read that book.
Yeah, no, and I will say I am just in the beginnings of it because, as everybody knows, I am going back to school to be a therapist, and the amount of reading that we have to do for that degree. I mean, I'm gonna just say it, we're up there with lawyers and med school master's programs. Like, I'm gonna just say this too. It might be controversial, but any therapist or any person going back to school to be a therapist, we should have our doctorate by the time we're done. It should be like that's how much work, how much reading we have to do. I don't know why it's just a master's, but it is what it is. I don't control that that world, but yeah, no, it's just definitely like I'm all about, learning about different perspectives, and especially helping people through things versus, because you could stay stuck on the why for a long time, and like why this is like that, why this is like this, but it's until you decide and make the conscious choice to change, then you know that's when things are going to happen. Because I always say the past is a place of reference, not the place of residence.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
yeah, no, I'm sorry, did you were gonna say
no,
something?
no, I think the hard part is like, getting to the place where you're ready to work on that stuff. Some people just never really get there.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something too. I feel what like when, you know, or I mean, you can always take from your own journey, but like when do you feel like that that ready stage is. Because I will say for a lot of people, and I think this is a common thing, and I wish that it wasn't this case, but for a lot of people, they're ready when they've hit rock bottom. That's what
Yeah.
I've heard a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for most people, it's like, okay, how uncomfortable do you need to get before it's time to make change, right?
Yeah.
There's a really great quote. I don't know if you're familiar with Ellen Vora, but she wrote a book called The Anatomy of Anxiety, and she talks about the level of discomfort. You know what? I'm just not going to finish that quote because I can't remember it all the
It's
way.
all good. Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, trust
But
me,
it
I
just
know.
it's like the
I
amount of work and the level of discomfort, how it should be like proportional. Um, but and I just lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
You were talking about the quote about discomfort. We were talking about like being ready
Yes,
to
yes,
change.
thank you. I
Yeah, of
appreciate that.
course.
Yeah,
No worries.
because like, so we have to get really uncomfortable before we're going to be ready to change. But sometimes we don't make that flip. Sometimes then it gets to the point where, our brain releases all these like chemicals that when we're feeling shame or when we're feeling, depression or anxiety, and then if we start to try to get better, our brain and our body are like, what's going on? I'm not feeling these same chemicals. I think the term is pain body. And then
Mhm.
it's like it feels good to feel bad. And so
Mhm.
it's like, then we're into like a whole other different category. And it's fascinating how powerful our brain is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I will say this, I think I've said this before. Not I don't know if in this podcast, but just in conversations that um I'm going back to school to be a therapist as well while I'm coaching and running my business. I don't know, because I'm crazy. And but as a potential mental health professional, I'm actually quite surprised of the things that we don't learn about the brain. Like, I know I'm not going to school to be a doctor or anything, but we don't really learn about like just like the general, like just biology of the brain and how the brain works and all this stuff. Because you're right. We are wired for our brains. Like our brains and our nervous systems will go to things that are familiar, even if they are a threat, even if they are bad for us, even if it's, like, so that's why, like, affirmations, change behaviors, reframing is so powerful because we're literally wired to go back. Like, I'm using an example. Like, let's just say you're in a dysfunctional family, like dysfunction is your normal. So
Right?
your brain and your body will want to go towards dysfunction. Is that healthy? No. Is it, good for your nervous system? Absolutely not. But because that's how we're wired to go to what's familiar, not necessarily what's healthiest for us or what's best for us.
Right. Yeah. Getting into all like the attachment theory stuff,
Mm,
the way that we were raised in our relationship with our caretakers, how that kind of tends to
show up.
create a pattern. And of course, we keep being served the lesson until we learn it. And along those same lines, that's why things like gratitude, some people are like, oh,
Mhm.
gratitude is so
Yeah, yep.
it's all new age and granola. And I'm like, no, it's
No.
literally how your brain works is through repetition. If you're going to keep thinking about all the things you're lacking and all how this sucks and I don't have this yet, like that's what your brain will let through. And that's why focusing on the things that we have and the things that we're, happy for and glimmers, that will train
Yeah.
our brain to continue to look for those things.
Yes, I love the term glimmer because I've recently, in the past years, have experienced the word glimmer, which is an opposite of a trigger. It's it's a good moment. It's an encouraging moment. It's a moment of peace, and it's a moment that like is does that actually like invigorates you and helps you feel good about yourself and your nervous system being regulated versus a trigger, which obviously I think we all know we all we all know the triggers are exactly what they are. They're a little more negative in there, but I love that if you do, because I'm a firm believer in that as well, is is if you have to gratitude is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Very powerful. And to, and that's why even as a potential therapist, like I'll use the term like reframing. I'm not saying like be not acknowledging people's feelings and not, processing your feelings, but after you've processed them, to take you to the place of, potential, changing your mood, you have to, their action has to be taken. So that could be a reframe. That could be, as you mentioned, using gratitude as a tool. That's why tools and therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. That's why these therapies are so effective, because they are training your brain to, they're rewiring it. But I do want to tell everybody that this is a practice, I'm sure, as you know.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's like I could reframe right now, like, yeah, I'm having a little bit of a frustrating day, but I mean, I actually have to be aware of it. I have to, but then like I do have to like practice gratitude, or to get myself out of this state, because it's like working out. It's like, I can't just go to the gym once and be like, yeah, like I'm fit. No, like it doesn't work like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Reframing things, and particularly reframing really difficult situations in our past. Like I said earlier, if there was something that is like you still look back on it and you still have anger or resentment, that's a sure sign that you need to go back and reframe that, whether it was years ago or earlier in that day. And one of the things that I talk about a lot is like, okay, well, we can look at that and you can say that was a really difficult moment. We're not changing the facts here, but we can say that, I have different tools now, or I was doing the best that I could in the moment. And really kind of, and then going back to the glimmers, which I like to explain them. I explain glimmers as like gratitude on steroids, because glimmers, kind of to what you're saying, they're really about that safety, right?
Mm.
We're always searching for signs of safety, whether it's, in our tribe around us, or, how can we release more oxytocin and get that, like that feeling of safety. And so when we can recognize all of the different scenarios where I really feel warm and fuzzy right now, and then try to like recreate that as much as possible, so that we have the safety, and then, as you said, the joy and all of those things. I think people really underestimate the power um, of safety and joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always say too, and I will kind of after this like end our episode on this, but I know we live in a society that's very like happiness, like obviously in our constitution in the United States, for those of you who are in the United States, it's like the pursuit of happiness, happiness, happiness. But I think you hit the nail on the head with like joy, because to me and my opinion, like joy is very foundational. It's long lasting. Like happiness, yes, I'm not saying don't do what makes you happy. Of course, do what makes you happy, but happiness is very fleeting.
Mhm.
So I feel like things like joy, things like peace, like those are things like I think I've said this on another podcast, so forgive me for those of you who heard me say this. Like I use the metaphor of like eating a donut right now, or something sweet or whatever, like having satisfying a craving I'm having right now. Yes, will make me happy, but in the long term, will it give me joy? Probably not, because I'll like maybe I'll just get off that like sugar high, or like I'm gonna guilt myself after I eat it because I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have really had that, Danielle. So I love that you mentioned like joy and that word joy, because I think that's one thing that we as a humanity should be, seeking.
Definitely. Versus the dopamine, right? The short
Yeah.
circuit.
Oh gosh, we could do a whole episode. I actually
Oh,
read
yeah.
a book. I'm sure I don't know if speaking of too, like, because I'm interested in the brain and chemicals, but I read the book. I'm sure you've I don't know if you've heard of it, The Molecule of More.
Ooh,
It's about dopamine. I forgive me, I'm forgetting the author of the book, but basically dopamine is all it knows is more. It doesn't know morals, it doesn't know values, it doesn't know ethics, it doesn't all it wants is more, 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 more.
yeah. The reward sensor of our brain. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But Amy, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Would love to have you back on the podcast and we can talk
Yeah.
about many things, I'm sure, but I appreciate you being here. And then just tell, I guess, the audience where they can find you. I know you're on Instagram, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, my website is amymichellecoaching.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes on YouTube, but
Yeah.
we'll stick with amymichellecoaching.com.
AmyMichelleCoaching.com. Exactly. Yeah. The website's always the best, right? Always the best way to find people. And as always, everybody, you can find this episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast on YouTube as well as Apple Podcast and Spotify.